There's a kind of disappearance nobody notices. Not the dramatic kind. Not the farewell post, the deleted account, the public announcement that you need a break. This disappearance is quieter than that. It lives in the moment you open an app, feel nothing, and close it again. In the sentence you type out, something real, something that actually mattered, and then read back and delete. Not because it was wrong, because it was too right, and the gap between what you wanted to say and what the format could hold was wider than any caption was ever going to bridge. Maybe you know this moment. Maybe you've been living in it for longer than you've admitted. Most people, when they notice someone going quiet online, assume something is wrong, that the person is struggling, withdrawing, disappearing into something they haven't named. And sometimes that's true. But here's what nobody says out loud. Going quiet online is often not withdrawal from life. It's a return to it, a refusal to split your attention between the experience and the narration of the experience. A quiet, private decision that what is real about you cannot survive being compressed into something an algorithm can measure and rank and forget by morning. This isn't loneliness wearing the mask of minimalism. This isn't shyness pretending to be philosophy. This is something more honest than any of those explanations. And it has been waiting to be understood as such. Here's the part most people miss. Going quiet online is rarely about the platform. It's about what the platform asks of you every time you open it. Researcher Danah Boyd spent years studying how people navigate social media. What she found changes the way you see the whole thing. She called it context collapse. When you post online, you are not speaking to a friend, or your family, or your colleagues. You are speaking to all of them simultaneously in the same sentence. Your most private truth has to survive the gaze of your employer, your most difficult relative, the person who misunderstood you 3 years ago, the stranger who will encounter it on the worst day of their year. So what gets posted is almost never the real thing. It is the version of the real thing that can survive all those gazes at once. Softer, more palatable, more performed. And some people reach a point where performing feels like a kind of lying, where the version of themselves that can survive the context collapse is so far from who they actually are that posting it feels worse than saying nothing. So they say nothing. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable, because the silence costs something too. You scroll. You watch other people move through their lives with what looks, from the outside, like ease. The milestones announced, the ordinary moments lifted into something frameable and sent into the world. And something in you watches all of this with a feeling that isn't quite envy, more like standing on the wrong side of a window looking into a lit room, knowing you could walk in. Also knowing the version of you that walks in would have to be smaller than the one standing here. You have moments, real ones, the kind that deserve to be witnessed, and no one online knows. You go through something heavy, genuinely heavy, and the timeline continues without acknowledging it. Because you never told it. And even though you chose the silence, there are nights when the silence presses back, when the invisibility feels less like protection and more like something else, something a little lonelier than you wanted it to be. Sherry Turkle at MIT spent decades studying exactly this. She found that people with genuine complexity, with interior lives that resist compression, begin to feel like strangers to the version of themselves they've learned to present online. the curated self grows more polished, more visible, and the real self, the one that couldn't fit, grows quieter, more private, and sometimes more isolated, not because it withdrew from people, but because the world learned to look for people only in the places the real self refused to go. That tension deserves to be named. But here's the paradox. And this is the one most people who've gone quiet never quite reach. The people who go quiet online are not people with less to say. They are often the ones with the most to say, and the deepest awareness that the format cannot hold it. The silence is not emptiness, it's a refusal. A refusal to pretend that a caption is the same thing as a truth, that a photograph is the same as a memory, that visibility is the same as being known. Here's what that actually means. The most genuinely present people are often the ones you cannot see. They are living the thing instead of documenting it. They are inside the conversation instead of framing it. They are sitting with the grief fully, without crafting the tribute. They are in the experience, completely, quietly, without an audience, in the way that only becomes possible when you stop splitting yourself between the moment and the telling of the moment. The timeline doesn't know them, but the moment does. And in a world that has grown uncertain about whether an experience counts if it isn't recorded, the person who says quietly, privately, without announcement, "It counts anyway, and I don't need to prove it," that person is doing something genuinely rare. They go quiet online because they are too present elsewhere to narrate themselves back here, not because they have nothing to offer, because they are too busy actually offering it. Maybe you went quiet for a reason you can name. Something happened, a loss, an exposure that landed wrong, a slow accumulation of performances that stopped feeling like you. There was just a day when you stopped, and a quiet that followed, and the discovery that the quiet felt more honest than anything you'd been posting. Either way, hear this. The quiet was not weakness. The quiet was not fear. The quiet was a refusal to compress the actual texture of your life into something an algorithm could process. A refusal to perform your emotions for a metric system that was not built to care whether they were real. A refusal to hand your most private moments to a format designed to hold everything except the thing that cannot be made small. That refusal was not nothing. It was, in a quiet and unannounced way, one of the most honest decisions you've made. If you see yourself somewhere in this, if something here felt less like a description and more like a recognition, then hear this. You are not invisible because you went quiet. You are not absent from your life because you stopped documenting it. You are not less real because you stopped performing yourself into existence for an audience that wasn't built to receive you fully. You are allowed to live in a way that leaves no visible record. You are allowed to have experiences that belong entirely to you, with no external confirmation that they happened. You are allowed to be somewhere the algorithm cannot find you, and to know, without needing anyone to agree, that what happens there is real. Because the life that unfolds offline, unposted, unnarrated, that life is not less than the one that appears on a screen. In most of the ways that actually count, it is more. The quietest profiles don't always belong to the emptiest lives. Sometimes they belong to the people who are simply too full of something real to know how to make it small enough to fit. You were never too much for the world. You were too much for the format. And those are not the same thing.